for more, we can go across to France 24's chief foreign editor, Rob Parsons. Rob, we just heard there from the Prince of Wales, basically charting out how the two countries can have always worked together in the past because they're neighbors and will continue to do so in the future.
Yes, I mean, obviously this resonates particularly at the moment when Britain and France are going through a difficult period with Brexit. In effect, both President Macron and Prince Charles are reminding people in France and in the United Kingdom that there's far more context to the relationship than that it's more ancient. And obviously, drawing on that wartime memory in particular, both men, with President Macron recalling the fact that when General de Gaulle arrived in Britain on June the 17th, just the day before he made that famous address, France was going through its darkest possible hour. German troops had marched into Paris just days before. Marshal Pétain, who is the man declared as president of France, was about to sign the armistice, effectively ending all French resistance. And the future for France looked bleak, but France was given General de Gaulle was given shelter by the British monarchy. He set up base in London. He was able to make that speech through the BBC and many more after that. And it became the beginning, as he put it, as Macron put it, the flame that was ignited of free France. And in his turn, Prince Charles was saying he remembers precisely the great affection of his grandfather, who was king at the time, for General de Gaulle and his admiration for him. And he, in particular, the telegram that he sent when finally Paris was liberated, which he sent to General de Gaulle, expressing his joy, remembering too the sorrow he had experienced as France went through the suffering of occupation, but now the joy of liberation.
Rob, France and the UK clearly have a long history together, but they also do butt heads often. To say the least.
If you go back in history, far enough, that's certainly the case. They've not always been on the same side in conflicts. But, in more recent history, in terms of military history, let's put it like that, it's a long time since France and Britain, or in particular England, it should be said, have been at war. You're talking about a couple of hundred years almost, really. But there have been other times too when politically they've been on different sides of the divide. And indeed, when it came to the formation of the common market, the predecessor of the European Union, despite all those fond memories that General de Gaulle had for Great Britain, he was against the idea of Great Britain joining the common market. Subsequent French leaders reversed that policy and welcomed the Great Britain into the common market and subsequently the European Union. But there have been frictions, quite clearly. Two powers that live right next door to each other is not entirely surprising. But today is a day in which they celebrate what they share, which is immensely more than what holds them apart. As Prince Charles put it, all possible spheres, in culture, in the arts, in business, across the board, and that common history of fighting together in the more recent past. 2 world wars, and before that, in the middle of the 19th century, the Crimean War as well, France and Britain on the same side.
Indeed. Rob, thank you very much for that. Rob Parsons.